The colony prison was quiet, but tension moved through the air like hidden fire. Soldiers walked slowly, their eyes sharp, their hands never far from their rifles. Inside the reinforced cage sat the alien warrior, the one they called Untamable. Her skin shone with silver markings, scars from battles across 100 worlds. Her eyes were like burning stars, cold and full of rage. Even chained, she looked powerful, like a storm waiting to break free. The humans of the colony had never seen anything like her. She was taller than most men, her muscles hard as steel, her presence heavy like thunder. No one dared step too close, not after what happened last week. 3 guards had tried to bring her food. Only one returned alive. The warrior never begged, never cried, never spoke in a soft voice. She roared, she fought, she resisted every command. That was why they called her Untamable. Rumors spread across the colony like fire through dry grass. Some said she was the last of her kind. Others whispered she had killed her own king. But no one really knew the truth. All they knew was this: she bowed to no one. The Council of Humans debated what to do with her. Execute her? Sell her to another colony? Use her as a weapon? Every option seemed dangerous. Every choice seemed wrong. One night, a storm hit the colony, lightning cracking across the sky. Inside her cage, the warrior did not flinch. Rain fell hard, water dripping through the broken ceiling above. She raised her head, her golden eyes flashing as thunder shook the earth. In that moment, she looked like a queen in chains. Not a prisoner, but a ruler trapped in the wrong place. The humans feared her, but they also could not look away. Something about her spirit demanded respect, even in silence. Children whispered about her in secret corners, calling her the Shadow Queen. Traders offered gold to buy her, but the council refused. She was too dangerous, too wild, too proud. Her silence became heavier than words. Every day she sat, unbroken, waiting for her chance. Yet fate has strange ways of moving. Among the humans, there was one who did not see her as a beast. He was not a soldier, not a leader, not even important in the eyes of the council. He was a worker, a man with tired hands and calm eyes. His name was Daniel, and he had lost much in the war. He did not fear death anymore, but he still believed in something the others had forgotten. He believed in kindness. Daniel watched the alien warrior from a distance. He saw how she never touched the food they threw into her cell. He saw how the guards mocked her, calling her animal. But she never bent, never broke. Something stirred inside him, something he could not ignore. She was not an animal. She was someone who had seen too much pain. He decided to do what no one else dared. The night after the storm, Daniel walked into the prison hall. The guards laughed at him, warning him he would not last 5 minutes. But Daniel ignored them, carrying nothing but a tray of food and a bottle of clean water. The heavy doors opened with a metallic groan. The sound echoed like the start of a dangerous game. He stepped inside, the cage just a few feet away. The warrior raised her head slowly, her golden eyes locking on him. Her gaze was sharp, like a blade pressed against his throat. But Daniel did not stop. He placed the tray gently on the ground. He did not throw it. He did not insult her. He spoke in a calm voice, simple words. "You must be hungry," he said, his tone steady. The alien warrior did not move, her silence heavy like a wall. She studied him, waiting for weakness, waiting for fear. But Daniel showed none. His heart beat fast, but his hands stayed steady. He turned to leave, not forcing her, not begging her. For the first time, the warrior's eyes softened, only for a second. But it was enough to mark the beginning of something no one expected. The untamable warrior had met a human who did not use chains or weapons. He used kindness. And that was the one thing she never knew how to fight. The next morning the colony buzzed with nervous talk. The guards could not believe Daniel had walked into the cage hall and walked out alive. Some called him foolish. Others whispered he must have made a secret deal with the alien warrior. But Daniel said nothing. He simply returned to his work, his hands steady, his eyes calm. The alien warrior, however, was not calm. She sat in her cage, her mind turning like a storm. No one had ever dared to treat her like that man did. Humans before him came with fear, with anger, with threats. But this one came with something else. Kindness, respect, patience. It was strange, confusing, even dangerous. She could crush him with a single blow, She could break his bones faster than he could scream. Yet he had looked at her as if she was not a monster, but someone who mattered. And for the first time, she had not wanted to kill. The council watched closely. If Daniel thought he could tame the alien with food and gentle words, they would allow him to try. Better he die in the attempt than waste trained soldiers. So the next day Daniel was told to bring her food again. The guards laughed, betting coins on how long he would survive. Daniel did not argue. He carried the tray and water with steady steps. But this time, when he entered, the warrior was already waiting. Her golden eyes locked on him, sharp and unblinking. Her chains rattled as she stood, her tall frame casting a shadow across the cage floor. The air grew heavy. The guards outside leaned forward, waiting for blood. Daniel placed the tray down again. Not too close, not too far. "You must eat," he said, his voice calm. "You cannot fight hunger forever." The warrior's lips curled into something between a sneer and a smile. Her voice, deep and rough, cut through the silence. "I bow to no human," she said. "I would rather starve than take scraps from your hand." Her words were sharp, but Daniel did not flinch. He knelt slowly and pushed the tray an inch closer. "I am not your jailer," he said. "I am only a man who believes no warrior should die with an empty stomach." The alien tilted her head, studying him. No fear in his eyes, no chains in his hands, only stubborn patience. She laughed, a harsh sound like steel grinding against stone. "You are strange, human," she said. "Most tremble before me. But you insult me with kindness." Daniel shook his head gently. "Kindness is no insult," he said. "It is a gift. Whether you take it or not is your choice." For hours she did not touch the food. Daniel left again, walking out with the same calm steps. The guards mocked him, called him useless, called him blind. But when night fell and the hall grew silent, the warrior's hand finally reached out. She ate in silence, but her mind was louder than thunder. This human was different, dangerously different. And that unsettled her more than chains or cages ever could. The next day, Daniel returned again. This time the warrior spoke first. "Why do you come back, human?" she demanded. "What do you want from me?" Daniel met her gaze, his answer simple. "Nothing," he said. "I only want you to live." The warrior frowned, her pride warring with curiosity. No human had ever spoken to her like that. No one had seen her as more than a weapon or a beast. And now this man, this ordinary worker, looked at her as if she was worth saving. She hated it. She hated the warmth it planted inside her chest. Because warriors like her were not meant to feel warmth. They were meant to fight, to kill, to survive. The guards began to notice the change. She no longer roared when Daniel entered, no longer tried to strike him through the bars. Instead, she watched him, always watching, like a predator unsure if it should strike or listen. The council grew curious. Perhaps, they thought, this human had found a way to break her spirit. Perhaps kindness could succeed where cruelty had failed. But they did not understand. The alien warrior's spirit was not breaking, it was bending. And bending was far more dangerous. One evening, Daniel stayed longer than usual. He spoke of the colony, of the war, of the people he had lost. His voice was steady but heavy, carrying sorrow like a quiet burden. The warrior listened without meaning to. For the first time, she heard pain in a human voice that matched her own. She realized then that this man was not weak. He was strong in a way no soldier ever was. Strong enough to face her without chains, strong enough to see her without fear. When Daniel finally stood to leave, the warrior spoke again, her voice lower this time. "Do not mistake me for a pet, human," she warned. "I will never bow to you." Daniel only nodded, his answer soft but firm. "I do not ask for your bow," he said, "only for your trust." For the first time since her capture, the alien warrior felt something she could not name. Not fear, not hatred, but something unfamiliar and dangerous. A seed planted in the cracks of her untamable heart. The days passed, and the alien warrior grew restless. She still sat in chains, her strength unbroken, but something inside her had changed. She waited now, not for freedom, but for him, the human who came without fear. The one who carried food not like a master, but like a man who respected her hunger. The one who spoke softly, yet made her heart rage with questions she could not answer. Her people had been destroyed by humans once. She remembered the fire, the blood, the endless battles. She had sworn never to bow, never to trust, never to let her heart soften. But this human Daniel was different. He did not strike, he did not mock, he did not demand. He simply looked at her as if she was still alive, as if her spirit had not turned to stone. The guards noticed her silence when Daniel entered. They muttered among themselves, saying she must be planning something. But the warrior knew she was not plotting his death. She was studying him, testing him, wondering why he did not break. Because in her world, kindness was weakness. And yet in him, kindness looked like strength. One evening, Daniel came again, his steps steady as always. This time he carried no tray, only a small flask of water. The guards frowned, but he ignored them, walking straight to the bars. The warrior tilted her head, her golden eyes sharp. "You forgot my food, human," she said with a growl. "Do you think I will drink water and survive?" Daniel shook his head, his voice calm. "No, today I did not bring food. Today I brought a question." The warrior narrowed her eyes, suspicious. "What question could you ask me that I would care to answer?" she hissed. Daniel held her gaze, his words soft but clear. "Why do you fight so hard against us? Why do you keep your chains heavier than they already are?" The warrior's breath caught for a moment. She had expected threats, insults, even weapons. But not this, not a human asking why. For a long time she did not answer. Her pride burned, her silence deep. But Daniel did not move. He waited as if time itself had no meaning. Finally, her voice broke the air, low and heavy. "Because I have nothing left," she whispered. "Because if I bow, then everything I lost is gone forever." Daniel listened, his face calm, his eyes steady. "You lost much," he said. "I lost much too, but carrying the weight alone will crush you." The warrior's eyes flashed, anger rising again. "You know nothing of my battles," she snarled. "You know nothing of my blood." Daniel did not raise his voice. He simply nodded. "You are right. I do not know your battles, but I know pain, and I know hunger, and I know what it means to be alone." The words cut deeper than chains. The warrior turned her head, refusing to meet his eyes. But inside, something cracked, something small and dangerous. For the first time she felt a pull toward his voice, not as an enemy, but as another soul marked by loss. The guards grew impatient, shouting at Daniel to leave. But he did not rush. He simply placed the flask near the bars. "If you drink, it is your choice," he said. "If you refuse, it changes nothing. I will still come tomorrow." The warrior clenched her fists, her pride screaming. But her throat was dry, her body tired. Slowly, she reached out and took the flask, her golden eyes never leaving his. She drank, the water cold and clean, burning down her throat like fire against old wounds. The hall fell silent. Even the guards stopped laughing. It was the first time she had accepted something freely given. Not stolen, not forced, not demanded. Daniel did not smile. He only bowed his head slightly and turned to leave. But before he reached the door, her voice stopped him. "Why you, human?" she asked, her tone sharp but trembling. "Why do you come when others only fear me?" Daniel paused, his answer simple but heavy. "Because someone must believe you are more than a weapon," he said. "If not me, then who?" Her chest tightened, anger and confusion twisting together. She wanted to shout, to roar, to remind him she was untamable. But her voice betrayed her, softer than she wished. "You are a fool, Daniel," she said, "and fools die first." Daniel turned his head slightly, his reply calm. "Maybe, but sometimes fools live long enough to change the world." As the heavy doors closed behind him, the alien warrior sat in silence, the taste of water still on her lips. Her pride fought to stay unbroken, but her heart whispered louder now. This human was dangerous, not because of his strength, but because of his kindness. And that was a battle she did not know how to win. The colony guards began to whisper among themselves. Something was changing inside the cage, and it unsettled them more than violence ever had. The alien warrior no longer struck at the bars when Daniel entered. She no longer shouted or cursed at him. Instead, she watched him with eyes that burned less with rage and more with thought. To the guards, it was dangerous. An untamable beast turning quiet was never a good sign. They believed she was planning something, waiting for the right moment to strike. But Daniel saw something else. He saw a wall of stone beginning to crack, even if just a little. One evening Daniel entered with a simple loaf of bread and a flask of water. The warrior sat cross-legged in the shadows of her cage, her chains heavy but her back straight. Her golden eyes followed him as he placed the bread near the bars. "You never give up," she said, her voice sharp. "Do you not tire of wasting your time on me?" Daniel shook his head slowly. "I do not think time spent showing respect is wasted," he replied. The warrior tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "No human has ever spoken to me like that," she said, "not without a blade or a chain in hand." Daniel met her gaze, steady and calm. "Then perhaps it is time someone did," he answered. Her lips curled into a faint smile, but it was not soft. It was fierce, almost cruel. "You are either the bravest human I have met, or the most foolish," she said. "Maybe both," Daniel admitted, and for a brief moment, silence became heavier than words. The warrior's hands twitched as if she wanted to break the bread, but she did not move. Instead, she leaned closer to the bars, her voice lowering. "Do you know why I am here, human?" she asked. Daniel shook his head. "No, but I wish to understand." Her eyes gleamed in the dim light. "I am here because I fought until the last of my kind was gone," she said. "I am here because humans destroyed my people's sky, and still I did not bow." Her words were fire, and yet they carried a shadow of sorrow. Daniel listened without interrupting. His face did not twist with guilt or anger, only quiet respect. "I believe you," he said, "and I am sorry for what you lost." The warrior's jaw tightened, her chains clinking as she turned away. "Your sorry will not bring them back," she said bitterly. "No," Daniel agreed. "But maybe it will remind you that not every human stands with those who hurt you." Her eyes flicked back to him, sharp and questioning. "You claim to be different," she said, "but why? Why risk your life on a creature like me?" Daniel's voice was steady. "Because you are not a creature," he said. "You are a warrior, and warriors deserve more than cages." The words struck her harder than chains. For a long moment she stared at him, her pride refusing to let her show weakness. But inside her chest, something dangerous stirred. Not rage, not hatred, but a spark she had not felt in years. It was not surrender, it was recognition. This human saw her not as a weapon, not as a prisoner, but as someone worth more than fear. The guards outside muttered, uneasy. They could not hear every word, but they saw the change in her eyes. A fire less wild, more focused, more alive. To them it was a threat. To Daniel it was hope. As the night deepened, Daniel rose to leave. But before he reached the door, her voice stopped him again. "Daniel," she said, her tone rough but quieter than before. He turned, waiting. "Tomorrow," she said slowly. "Bring no food. Bring no water. Bring only yourself. I wish to see if your words are truth or just weakness." Daniel gave a small nod. "Then tomorrow, I will bring only myself," he said. The heavy doors closed, the echo rolling through the hall. The warrior sat in silence, her hands tightening on the chains. For the first time since her capture, she did not feel only rage. She felt curiosity, sharp and dangerous. And deep in her untamable heart, a spark of something new flickered. The next day the guards watched with uneasy eyes. Daniel entered the prison hall with nothing in his hands. No food, no water, no gifts. Only himself, as the warrior had demanded. The cage seemed darker that day, the storm outside rumbling like distant drums. The warrior sat waiting, her golden eyes glowing in the shadows. Her chains rattled softly as she shifted, her presence heavy and sharp. "You came," she said, her voice low. "Even without weapons, even without offerings." Daniel nodded, his steps calm, his face steady. "I came because you asked," he replied. "I came because words mean nothing if they are not tested." The warrior rose to her full height, her form towering, powerful, untamed. She stepped close to the bars, her face inches from his. Her breath was like heat, her eyes fierce. "You speak of respect, of trust," she said. "But do you know what that costs? Do you know what trust has cost me?" Daniel did not flinch. "No, but you can tell me," he answered softly. Her chest tightened, her pride screaming against the weakness of words. But something inside her cracked, something old and buried. She clenched her fists, her chains groaning, her voice breaking free like thunder. I trusted once, she hissed, and it cost me everything, my clan, my family. My people burned because I trusted humans. Her voice shook the hall. The guards shivered. Daniel stood still, his eyes never leaving hers. I cannot undo your pain, he said. But I can listen. I can share the weight if you let me. The warrior laughed bitterly, the sound rough and sharp. You? Share my weight. You are one man, one fragile human. Your bones would snap under the memory of my battles. Daniel's voice did not waver. Maybe, but maybe it is not about strength of bone, but strength of heart. The warrior froze, her lips parting but no words coming out. No human had ever spoken like this to her. Not with chains in his hands, not with fear in his eyes, but with stubborn calm, with quiet fire, with something that felt like truth. She turned away, pacing in the cage, her chains dragging across the floor. Her heart roared, torn between rage and something softer. Finally she stopped, her voice trembling but firm. My people taught me never to bend, never to kneel, never to bow, she said. Even in death we stand. That is why they called me Untamable. Daniel stepped closer to the bars, his voice calm. And I do not ask you to bow, he said. I ask you only to stand beside me, not as a prisoner, but as a soul who still deserves life. Her golden eyes snapped back to him, fire and confusion clashing inside. You are dangerous, human, she whispered. More dangerous than chains, more dangerous than blades, because you make me feel. Daniel's reply was soft but strong. Feeling is not weakness, it is what makes us alive. The warrior's chest heaved, her pride cracking like stone under fire. For the first time since her capture, her eyes softened, not fully, not surrender, but enough to show the spark of something new. She sat slowly, lowering herself to the ground, her voice quieter. Tell me, Daniel, she said. Tell me of your battles. Tell me why you still carry kindness when the world has taken so much from you. So Daniel spoke, his words simple but heavy. He told her of the war, of the colony he lost, of the family buried beneath ruins. He spoke of hunger, of silence, of days where despair almost crushed him. But he also spoke of hope, of the small things that kept him alive. The kindness of a stranger, the hand of a friend, the choice to keep believing that not all was lost. The warrior listened, her chest tight, her eyes locked on him. For the first time she saw her own pain mirrored in a human story. For the first time she felt less alone. The walls she had built, high and unbreakable, trembled like old stone. When Daniel finally fell silent, the hall was heavy with quiet. The warrior looked at him, her voice softer than it had ever been. Perhaps you are not a fool, she said. Perhaps you are something else. Daniel tilted his head, his tone gentle. And what am I? He asked. She hesitated, her lips parting, her pride fighting the words. But in the end, all she whispered was, different. The guards outside exchanged nervous glances. They had seen her rage, her violence, her fire, but they had never seen her like this. And that frightened them more than anything. Because an untamable warrior beginning to feel was not weakness. It was the first spark of something far more dangerous. The storm outside grew stronger as days passed. Lightning split the sky, thunder rolled across the colony walls. Inside, whispers spread like fire. The alien warrior was changing, and it was because of one man. The guards feared it, the council debated it, but Daniel continued to walk into the cage hall without fear. One night, everything shifted. An alarm shattered the silence of the colony. The prison shook as explosions echoed from outside. Raiders, enemy soldiers, scavengers, no one knew exactly who. But the colony was under attack. The guards scrambled, weapons raised, shouting orders. Doors slammed, boots thundered across metal floors. And in the chaos, the alien warrior's cage stood silent, her golden eyes burning. Daniel rushed into the hall before the guards could stop him. He carried no weapon, only the same steady resolve. The warrior gripped her chains, her gaze sharp. This is your war, human, she growled. Do you still come to me when your own world is burning? Daniel nodded, his breath heavy. I come because this war will reach you too, and because I know you are not my enemy. The hall shook again, dust falling from the ceiling. Outside, screams cut through the storm. The guards shouted that the cage should remain sealed, that the warrior should die locked away. But Daniel turned to them, his voice firm. If she stays chained, we all die. The warrior's eyes widened slightly. He was willing to risk everything on her. Not just his life, but the safety of the entire colony. Do you trust me so easily? She asked, her tone sharp with disbelief. Daniel met her gaze, steady as stone. I do not trust easily, he said. I trust because I see who you are beneath the chains. The guards argued, raising their rifles. But the walls shook again, this time closer. The enemy had breached the outer gate. There was no more time, no more debate. Daniel grabbed the keys, his hands trembling but determined. The guards shouted warnings, some even aimed their weapons at him. But he pressed forward, unlocking the heavy lock that bound her. The chains fell, clattering to the ground like thunder. For the first time since her capture, the warrior stood unbound. Her full height cast a shadow across the hall, her presence like a storm breaking free. The guards stepped back in fear. They expected her to strike, to kill, to escape. But she did none of those things. Her golden eyes fixed only on Daniel. You are a fool, she said softly. You release a storm in the middle of fire. Daniel's answer was quiet but strong. Then let the storm fight for us, not against us. The enemy burst through the outer door, weapons raised, faces masked with rage. The guards fired desperately, but they were outnumbered. In that moment, the warrior moved. She struck like lightning, her body faster than human eyes could follow. Chains still clung to her wrists like broken jewelry, but her strength was unstoppable. She tore through the raiders with a fury that shook the hall. Yet even in her rage, even in her storm, she did not touch Daniel. She shielded him, turning her body between him and every blade. The guards froze in disbelief. The untamable warrior was not killing humans. She was protecting one. Protecting the only one who had given her respect. The battle raged for what felt like hours. Bodies fell, the storm roared, the colony shook. But when it ended, when the dust settled, the warrior stood in the middle of the hall, her chest heaving, her body bloodied. And Daniel stood behind her, untouched, alive. The guards whispered in awe, their fear turning into something else. Respect, confusion, disbelief. The council arrived, their faces pale as they saw the truth. The alien warrior who had sworn never to bow had chosen to fight for a human. And not just any human, but Daniel, the one they all thought a fool. The warrior turned to him, her golden eyes still fierce. You risked everything to free me, she said. Why? Daniel's answer was simple, steady as always. Because sometimes trust is the only weapon we have left. Her heart roared with conflict. Pride told her to deny him. Rage told her to hate him. But something stronger whispered inside her. Something she had buried for too long. For the first time in her life, she did not feel like a weapon. She felt like a warrior standing beside someone, not against them. And that was the turning point. Not chains, not battles, not cages. But a human's kindness breaking through where nothing else had. The colony lay in ruins after the attack. Fires burned in the distance. Smoke curled into the storm-dark sky. Bodies of raiders and broken machines littered the ground. The survivors gathered in silence, their eyes full of fear and awe. Because at the center of it all stood the alien warrior, unchained, unbroken, and yet changed. She had fought with fury, her strength unstoppable, her rage like thunder. But she had not turned against the humans, not once. Every strike she made had been to protect, every move had been to shield. And the one she shielded most was Daniel, the ordinary human who had done the impossible. The council approached carefully, their voices sharp with suspicion. She should be locked again, one said. She is too dangerous, another agreed. But none could deny what they had seen. The untamable warrior had chosen to fight for them, not against them. And it was not out of chains or fear, it was out of something else. The warrior stood in the prison hall, her chest still heaving, her golden eyes fierce. Daniel stepped toward her, his face calm even as the guards raised their weapons. You saved us, he said quietly. You didn't have to, but you did. Her gaze locked on him, her jaw tight, her pride battling her heart. I did not save them, she said, nodding toward the humans. I saved you. The words cut through the silence, heavy as stone. The council muttered, the guards shifted nervously. But Daniel only nodded, his voice steady. Then I thank you. Not as a jailer, not as a master, but as one who owes his life to you. The warrior's hands trembled, not with weakness, but with something she had not felt in years. Respect, connection, the weight of choice. Her people had sworn never to bow, never to kneel, never to break. But as she looked at Daniel, she realized bowing was not always defeat. Sometimes it was respect, sometimes it was freedom. Sometimes it was choosing who was worthy of her loyalty. Slowly, before the eyes of the council, the guards, and the survivors, the alien warrior bent her knee, her head lowering, her chains falling silent against the stone. The hall gasped, voices rising in disbelief. The untamable warrior, the one who had sworn never to bow, was bowing. Not to chains, not to weapons, not to fear, but to a human's kindness. Daniel's breath caught, his hands tightening at his sides. He stepped forward quickly, shaking his head. "You don't have to do this," he whispered. "You are free now, you owe me nothing." The warrior lifted her gaze, her golden eyes softer than he had ever seen. "I do not bow because I am forced," she said, her voice steady. "I bow because you earned what no battle could take from me, my respect." The silence stretched, heavy and powerful. The council stared, unable to speak. The guards lowered their rifles slowly, their fear replaced with something else. And Daniel, the ordinary man, the worker no one thought important, stood before her as the only human the warrior had ever chosen to honor. From that day, everything changed. The colony no longer saw her as untamable. They saw her as an ally. Not a prisoner, not a weapon, but a warrior who had found a new purpose. She walked beside Daniel, not behind, not in chains, but free. And though she would never forget the fire of her past, she carried a new fire now. The fire of loyalty born not from fear, but from kindness. And so the story spread across the colonies. The tale of the alien warrior who bowed only to a human's heart. A reminder that sometimes strength is not in chains, nor in blood, but in the simple act of one human daring to believe in something greater. The untamable warrior had been tamed by no blade, no cage, no army, only by kindness. And in the end, that was the greatest power of all.